The latest on Derby County's investment has been revealed by Stephen Pearce in an exclusive interview with BBC Radio Derby just a few days ago. Now, if you haven't done so already, I did a full overview of that interview just a few days ago on the channel, so make sure you do go ahead and check that out. But in this video, we're going to be focusing purely on the investment coming into Derby County and what we could see happen over the course of the next few weeks. We're going to talk about some of the key players in the investment and why Derby County fans need to not worry about this summer transfer window. Now, obviously, if you don't know already, Derby County and David Clowes have been searching for investment for just under a year now, but realistically since David Clowes took over, and there is the possibility that he is willing to sell up to 80% of Derby County Football Club. Now, he has equipped advisor Jonathan Price with a role in regards to investment, and that means that Jonathan Price has a lot of knowledge of the inside details of the club. But no deal has been confirmed yet, but shall we get into everything about Jonathan Price and investment? Do you want to win yourself the brand new Derby County 2025-26 home shirt? Well, I'm here to give you an opportunity to do that. There will be a link down in the description where you can head on over to raffle.com to join a raffle where you can win the Derby County home shirt. Ticket prices start at just £1 with a range of different discounts available. You can buy 2 tickets, get 2 free, 5 tickets, get 5 free, 10 tickets, get 10 free, and 15 tickets to get 15 free. The intention with this is to give you guys the opportunity to win a Derby County shirt for less than the valued cost in the shop. So if you haven't done so already, head on down to the description, click on the link in the description, which will take you over to raffle.com, create yourself an account, answer the question, and join this raffle. The winner will be announced on August 1st at 6 p.m. as the transfer window begins to draw to a close. So if you haven't done so already, head on over there and get your tickets. Many of you may recognise the name Jonathan Price from when previous Derby County owner Mel Morris was at the helm as we headed towards administration. But ultimately, Jonathan Price and Mel Morris are not in cahoots. You don't have to worry about boots on the ground from former Derby County owner with this situation. Now, Jonathan Price was a key part in making sure that David Clowes was able to buy the stadium off Mel Morris and to make sure that David Clowes eventually ended up buying Derby County as a whole as we headed down to League One. Now, there's been a lot of conversations about Jonathan Price over the course of the last few months, and it's been speculated what his sort of role is at Derby County. And to be quite honest with you, you don't know, I don't know, but Stephen Pearce has given us a little bit of an insider into what Jonathan Price does and what his role is at Derby County. Now, the conversation around him within this interview was regarding decisions made at the football club and things like that. And Stephen Pearce made it very, very clear in this interview that Jonathan Price makes no decisions around the football club. He hasn't made any decisions regarding the first team, regarding the coaching staff, management, players, anything like that, as per Stephen Pearce. Now, obviously, Stephen Pearce could just be saying that, but we have to give him the benefit of the doubt and believe that Pearce is going to tell us the truth. Now, he does have insider information at Derby County. He does have the knowledge of the financials, the valuation of the playing squad and things like that. And he has all the sort of information that is necessary to be able to pass on to any sort of investment groups that are at the table. Obviously, we do know, as per John Percy, that those deals have been sort of accelerating in talks since Derby County stayed in the Championship. Now, whether that means a deal will be done before the end of this transfer window, we're not entirely sure. But at the moment, Jonathan Price is sort of the go-between between the club and David Clowes and these investment groups. Now, that doesn't mean that David Clowes isn't involved in these meetings, because me personally, I assume that he is. Now, you can obviously have your say down in the comments, but for me, I would believe that Price and Clowes are having these conversations with investors together. There might be a bit of to-in and fro-in with Price before you obviously sit down in a room with Clowes and sort of have a business conversation, but in my opinion, I'd say that they're probably dealing with all of it together. Now, there was also some conversation regarding the decision to sack Paul Warne, in which it wasn't necessarily asked directly, did he have a hand in the sacking, but it seemed as if Stephen Pearce sort of shut the door on that very quickly, that he's not had any involvement in the first team squad, he's not had any involvement in the management, and obviously those decisions were taken with the club in full focus and not necessarily with price in mind or investors or anything like that. Now, there was a lot of talk about Price within this interview, and it felt as if like BBC Radio Derby sort of had the impression that the whole involvement with Price was to do with essentially a secret, a hidden backdoor sort of conversations that were going on with Derby County that were probably a little bit untoward. Now, Stephen Pearce has made it clear that there was never a secret with Jonathan Price, being linked to the club and being an advisor and helping Derby County in that sort of aspect towards investment. And the whole aim of having Price on board is to help Derby County get the best possible deal for the club in order to give them the best possible future going forward, which in my opinion is absolutely the right thing to do. And we've already had that sort of confirmation from David Clowes anyway, that the intention to sell the club will only sort of go through if it's the right buyer, and that's obviously the right thing to do as per David Clowes, and the right thing to do for the club as well. Now, obviously, when it goes down to sort of the twos and fros of the investment and things like that, Stephen Pearce is not involved in the sort of day-to-day conversations that may be ongoing or those sorts of situations. He's not necessarily in the meetings directly, as per himself, with Jonathan Price, with David Clowes, with any of these potential investors, which doesn't really surprise me. Like, his job is to run the club day to day. He's not is not a board member, let's say. He doesn't have shares in the club. He doesn't really have sort of a say in what happens in the future of the football club, really, which I think is obviously the right decision to make for the club. And obviously it's David Clowes that has got to make that decision at the end of whether he's going to sell the club to X party or sell the club to Y party. And that eventually falls on what Jonathan Price tells him about the parties and what obviously David Clowes does in his own due diligence. Now, Stephen Pearce was keen in the interview with Radio Derby to make it clear that there is a data room which I assume will have access to all the data on the academy players and valuations, contract talks, all the sort of important stuff of day-to-day involving finances, incoming and outgoing, and how the club is sort of moving forward. And obviously, in my opinion, I think that's the absolute right decision for the club to be able to sort of put those things together and keep that updated on a sort of day-to-day basis, so that when you give an investment group a packet to sort of say, this is the situation with the club, this is where we are, this is where we're heading, this is what's in the bank, this is what we've got available to spend, those then investors can look at it and go, well, this is how we can help, this is what we can do, this is how we can broaden the market for selling merchandise, and this is how we can broaden the market for the fan base, because that is something that an investor or a buyer will potentially do. You look at the likes of how Ryan Reynolds, etc., have sort of built up Wrexham to be this sort of massive Hollywood club when, 5-6 years ago, they were a nothing non-league club, and now they're sort of one good season away from the Premier League, which is really important to note. That I'm not saying that Derby County will go down that route of a Hollywood buyer, but there is some positives that can come from that aspect if that is what David Clowes feels is the right move to do. Now, as it stands, Stephen Pearce is operating on the understanding that David Clowes is the owner and David Clowes is running the show, and until he's told otherwise, he will continue to do that. I get the understanding from obviously what Stephen Pearce was saying and what we know already from the likes of John Percy and BBC Radio Derby, that Stephen Pearce doesn't really know anything in the perspective of who the buyers are, potential buyers are, who the potential investors are, what the sort of terms of potential deals are behind the scenes. And in my opinion, that's the right move from David Clowes. You don't really want the sort of muttering to and fro in like we had under Mel Morris, where you had obviously the sheikhs come in, which was obviously ruined by the debts behind the scenes, and obviously the money never ended up turning up. You then obviously had Eric Alonso, Chris Kirsch. You've had so many people in the background trying to sort of pick up this club at times, and ultimately all the public to and fro that happened wasn't necessarily a positive for the club, in my opinion. So I think what Clowes is doing is stopping the uncertainty and the dispute that can sort of go on behind the scenes with the staff and things like that by just keeping it between himself and the people involved in those meetings at the top, which I think is the right thing to do. Now, Stephen Pearce did also say within the interview that he wasn't willing to comment on any of the investment parties or any of the takeover parties because at the end of the day, it's David Clowes' discussion to have with the media when he wants to have it and when he feels like the club is in a place where it is going to either be sold or a deal is being agreed. And I think that's the right thing to do from Stephen Pearce. Whatever information he does have, there's no point in putting it out now when we don't have a deal agreed or something done in principle for Derby County to move forward under new ownership, because then you sort of start to build the hype around the season based on a potential investment deal that might not happen. We had this back in that final season, really, under Mel Morris, when you had the shakes and things like that come in, and Derby County were realistically a bank transfer away from being essentially what Newcastle are now, where you've got tons of cash to spend, and obviously that would have been a completely different circumstance for Derby County had that gone through. Now, it is important to note that as of right now, Stephen Pearce will stay until he's told not to, and anything can change. It can change from when this video posts to a minute after it's posted. These things can all change. So obviously, if you haven't done so already, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on your notification bell. I'm trying to keep you all up to date with everything that's going on across the course of Derby County, whether it be transfers, news, what John Eustace might plan to do in this window and things like that. And I'm also giving you all the opportunity to win a Derby County shirt for the small cost of just £1. So if you haven't done so already, I'm going to put a video at the end of this segment just so that you can get an understanding of what's going on. There'll probably have been something within the video as well. So if you haven't done so already, stay through this video. The link is in the description for you to give yourself the opportunity to win a Derby County shirt. So if you have not done so already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, turn on the notification bell, and play the V-roll. Do you want to win yourself the brand new Derby County 2025-26 home shirt? Well, I'm here to give you an opportunity to do that. There will be a link down in the description where you can head on over to raffle.com to join a raffle where you can win the Derby County home shirt. Ticket prices start at just £1 with a range of different discounts available. You can buy 2 tickets, get 2 free, 5 tickets, get 5 free, 10 tickets, get 10 free, and 15 tickets to get 15 free. The intention with this is to give you guys the opportunity to win a Derby County shirt for less than the valued cost in the shop. So if you haven't done so already, head on down to the description, click on the link in the description, which will take you over to raffle.com, create yourself an account, answer the question, and join this raffle. The winner will be announced on August 1st at 6 p.m. as the transfer window begins to draw to a close. So if you haven't done so already, head on over there and get your tickets.